Welcome to the latest roundup of news and polls from Ipsos MORI. And the first thing I'd like to say is a huge thank you to the millions of people who've taken part in the REACT study that we conduct with Imperial College that tests for the presence of the virus across the country, including among people who are asymptomatic. What we found is that overall the number of people with the virus is now only 1 in 200. It's fallen markedly, and the reproduction rate has fallen now to 0.72. So the disease is now going backwards. It looks like lockdown is working. And, that's a huge thank you from us to everybody who's subjected themselves to antibodies and antigen tests. The government itself is also getting good ratings in terms of the vaccination programme that has now been rolled out. It's rare for government to get these sorts of scores and for any government to get these sorts of scores on virtually anything. So to have nearly 9 out of 10 people saying they're doing a good job on making sure the UK has the vaccine is something that they will be pretty pleased about. And overall, the British public, when it comes to vaccines, perhaps because of our success in getting 15 million people vaccinated by the middle of February, is fairly generous. Around just over half of us say that we should give away any spare doses that we have of the vaccine, and only 3 in 10 of us think that we should just keep them in case we need them in future. In terms of who we should give them to, it's actually the poorest countries in the world, wherever they are, rather than, interestingly, the poorer Commonwealth countries. So we're focusing on the most deprived people around the planet, not just people that we visit particularly or people who are perhaps have better human rights records. We're thinking about the fundamental human needs. And it shows that the British, despite Brexit, remain one of the more generous countries in terms of their aid around the world. Despite the government's success with the vaccine programme, overall, people remain critical of its handling of the outbreak. We've got around 46% who say it's doing badly. That's down from a high of 50% a few months ago. And there is a bit of a vaccine boost, but up about 8 points in terms of those who say it's doing well. But overall, in terms of how the politicians are handling it, there's still a pretty mixed picture. Rishi Sunak, the man with the money, is the most popular politician in Great Britain, 55% happy with his performance. Matt Hancock has received a boost this month. 4 in 10 now say he's doing a good job, the highest score he's had for a long time. And the government is still at the moment seen as doing better than the Labour Party would, or indeed better than Keir Starmer would in dealing with the outbreak. And so the public remain very cautious about how we come out of lockdown. Throughout the pandemic, the public have tended to regard government measures as being likely to be not strict enough, as opposed to too strict. And they're very cautious about what it's going to do, what's going to happen on the economy. 6 out of 10 of us still expect the economic condition of the country to get worse over the next year rather than better. Only 29% optimistic. It is creeping up a little bit, but it's a reminder the British remain pretty pessimistic and pretty cautious. When it comes to how the opposition is doing, the Labour Party has made up ground with its new leader, Keir Starmer, over the last year, but he's not really cutting through. Dissatisfaction with his performance among the general public is rising. He's attempting a reset and to set out his vision for the country, but he's got some way to go. And it's a reminder that back in 2012, of course, Ed Miliband got as far as 12 points ahead of the government, but still didn't win the general election of 2015. And Keir Starmer is nowhere near that. And actually, in terms of who's doing best at holding the government to account, the majority of the British public say it's actually a 23-year-old footballer, Marcus Rashford, and he's well ahead of the media, Keir Starmer, or any member of Parliament. So just a reminder that it's hard in a sense to cut through, and perhaps Marcus Rashford, by focusing just on free school meals, a single issue, very easily understandable, is able to have more impact than all of the opposition and all other MPs put together. Elsewhere in the world, most people think that the US Senate should have convicted President Trump for the events of early January. 58% of them think that the Senate should have impeached him. And the reason they didn't is mostly partisan politics, it's a reminder that partisan politics in Europe, in Britain and in America is still driving a lot of political behaviour and political reasoning. Elsewhere this month, we've looked at sustainable brand growth. What does that mean? We've seen a massive rise in the proportion of people who want to see business reflecting their values and to see bosses standing up and being counted. But what does that mean in practical terms for marketers? We've looked at the latest things in terms of customer experience, whether it's mystery shopping or customer experience itself. And finally, we've looked at how, even before the pandemic, in our GPPS survey, the major survey we do looking at every GP practice, Overall, it shows that people were willing, even before the pandemic, to use remote channels to contact, digital channels to contact their GPs. And I think that's one thing that probably will stick after the pandemic. That's all for now. See you very soon.